Hi there, welcome back. In the last video, I stopped right before I went upstairs to to my parents' house. I've outlined pretty much everything from here on out to the end of the videos that I'll make, for the most part. I want to get through these quickly, and so there are a few things I want to mention before I progress into the sequence of events that happened after the video that you just saw. I want to mention that I had mentioned my shop equipment. We moved that shop equipment from my living room. Everything had been moved upstairs to my living room, so I really no longer had a shop. I don't think I was clear about that. I had notified my roommates as soon as I had my parents and I had decided that we were actually going to have me live there. I notified my roommates immediately after that, and that was pretty close to the first of the month. So I'd say within the first few days of June. Ideally, I would give my roommates at least 30 days, if not longer. These were the circumstances were out of the ordinary, so and they were fine. They were pretty confident they'd get somebody in there to replace me. I also had mentioned to my mother when revealing to her how dire all this was, and when talking about the dog with her. That was the family dog. I referred to it as the family dog. Really, I didn't know that dog very well. I had spent very little time with it. It was my mother and father's dog. They had that dog for maybe 2 years, and I would just see it once in a while for a bit while I visited. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm trying to get through these quickly, and it's I feel flustered. I get really anxious before I do these videos usually, and I try not to make that come out, but it kind of does sometimes. And there's something that I had noticed. I think I noticed it when I was younger, but I hadn't really taken real inventory of it. And I began to I think that day, in particular, it all sort of came together for me. There was a pattern that I had recognized, and it was when my parents and I were in an argument of some sort. And they either, when I was younger, when they would punish me or put some sort of restriction on me or do something that I felt was really, I felt like an injustice had been done to me. It seemed that they were at their happiest when, in the aftermath of that. I would, recall being just very, very angry and hearing them, really having a particularly good time from in that, downstairs where they were maybe hanging out in the living room or something. And I noticed this in the arguments that we were having while I was there, while I was sick, that particularly after an argument, and generally the worse it was, and clearly the more distraught I was about that, they seemed to be in a sort of euphoric state. And I started wondering if this was rewarding in some way for them. That this was something that they were almost addicted to. It was kind of like it was a bonding moment for them. And on that day, the last video that I made, that morning, I had woken up, and it was, I was sleeping. I was staying in my old childhood bedroom at the time. It had been converted into like a computer/storage room, but there was a bed in there now, and I was staying in there. And I woke up that morning, and that's the first time since this had all started taking place, which had been at that point months, maybe 4 months, something like that. And it was the first time that I was not filled with fear. I had a sense of, there was a sense of hope, and that fear, a significant portion of fear had been lifted, and I really felt good. At least in comparison to how I had been feeling. And that didn't last long at all. I opened my bedroom door, and immediately, within seconds, my mother, I think first inadvertently had done something, and I think I mentioned something to her. She could perhaps not do that. But I noticed she was in a state of, she would get into these sort of, I don't know if this is the right way to describe it, sort of like a manic state. It was very excited. And she'd use this voice, like a very childlike, sort of babyish voice. Something she'd always done. And especially when she'd get into this sort of heightened state of it was a very markedly different mood that she was in. And I remember she was bothering me, and I remember she picked the dog up and she swung it at me, and the dog had a look on its face like it wasn't expecting it. It surprised me. It startled me, and I had mentioned I needed things to be really sort of boring, and I was no fun to be around. I am completely admit that, and I tried to stay in my bedroom most of the time, except when I had to use the restroom or prepare something to eat, and I would try to get myself out to acclimate myself, to get myself better, acclimate myself out to people. But I admit I was not fun to be around, but I tried not to be a burden. But there were some things I needed from them, and one of those was just can you not, sudden excitability really strange behavior got to me, and this continued. The plan that morning, I'm sorry, this video is beginning to be long, but the plan for that morning was to finish unloading the truck, and my mother and father were going to help me. We were getting ready to go do that, and as we were walking out the door leads downstairs from the basement out to the garage, and then from the garage out to the driveway. My mother and I were about to exit out that door, and I said to her, essentially, can you just tone it down a little bit? It's not good for me. And she said, she apologized. She said something like, I'm sorry. And then she said, actually, I'm not sorry. And it was that, whether it was playful, really just needed her to work with me. And there were so many incidents that had happened, so many terrible arguments that were happening because they were either seemingly not understanding what I was saying. I felt like I was in the Twilight Zone. I felt like it was sort of horrific. If you can imagine speaking to people, but no one understands what you're saying. And I wasn't being cryptic about what I was saying. I'm pretty, my ability to, I think, be precise with language has deteriorated a pretty noticeable amount. But I was still able to be articulate enough and I think communicate effectively enough that and deliberately communicate that nothing that I was saying was ambiguous, and their inability, or almost, it seemed impossible for them to not be able to comprehend what I was saying. I felt like they were messing with me, and like I said, I was having a hard time. I was really questioning reality, and I felt like, when giving into this thought experiment of what if reality isn't, what if things aren't as they seem, and I'm in some sort of hell, and these people, it really messed with me. And so my mother saying that to me as we walked out the door set the stage for, I felt like she was on a path to trying to test my boundaries again. My boundaries meaning how far she's able to push me with this condition to see what happens. I think there was a curiosity there of what would happen if she pushed me over the edge. And throughout moving out that truck, she was provoking me. It was subtle, but it was noticeable. I could tell she was intentionally provoking me. And that cascaded throughout the process of moving out of that truck. I was very angry toward the end, and I ended up moving everything out by myself, whatever was left of it after that. And I took the U-Haul back to the place where we to the U-Haul rental place, and just walked back, which was a few miles. And when I came back, that's when I had, was trying to cool down. I was looking at all this stuff in the garage and spilling out into the driveway. And it was just so much, I was so overwhelmed, and I was really frightened, thinking, man, I can't go back to my apartment, and I'm moving out. I've already halfway moved out of there. I'm stuck with these people, my parents, and I think that they're intentionally trying to hurt me. And it was I felt so lost, and I so desperately wanted to get better, and I knew how to make myself better, but they were fighting me on it. It was one obstacle after another trying to get better. And so that leads us to that moment. I had only driven, not far, maybe just a few blocks from home, came back, and I was, at that point, I was after my father had refused to let me build the supports, I was very angry about it. I was really trying to reason with him and detail why it was a good reason and how important it was to me. And it just didn't matter. And before I left, they were so overly happy. They were, it was, any arguing between them, it would cease, and they were so their laughter became so loud and almost like they were putting on a show for me. And I don't know if I'm wrong about this, but it is a pattern that I definitely recognized, whether it be coincidental or really if there's something to it. I noticed it once again, and I really thought, these people there's something wrong with them. And I haven't lived with them for so long because of these things, because it's never healthy and things never go well when I live with them. And under these conditions, I have no exit. I felt like I was a prisoner there because of my mental state, and I couldn't go back to my apartment. My landlord was just far too I could not escape this guy. And so I was really in a bad state. And and the fact that I'd had that moment when I woke up of feeling no fear, and it was taken away from me so unnecessarily and so quickly, it made me think that I would never feel like that again. And this fear, and that I just wouldn't get better under these conditions. And so I wanted to state that. There's one other thing. I think I'm probably forgetting some stuff. But I had mentioned early on to my mother, when speaking about the dog, that I really wanted to keep the dog out of sight because I was concerned about it setting off an OCD event. I said, I revealed to her my fears about being committed. I said, please just work with me. Don't commit me. I can get better. I just need time to get better. Don't commit me to a mental hospital. And I said, and my reason for that, and I explained this to her, was that I didn't trust mental health professionals. Now, not all of them. I'm making a generalization, but I have seen cruelty in my life. And I was in such a state that it would be really, really easy for someone to exploit the condition I was in and effectively torture me without doing a whole... The mental health staff there, if they wished to do me harm, could do it without people noticing very much, I think. And I was really afraid that there would be individuals that I would have to be in contact with that would want to do me harm. I felt like this is a likely enough scenario that I was not willing to go back to a mental health facility. So I said, if they called, let me get better, I can do this. I just need time. And I said, if you call the cops on me, if you have me committed, I'm not going willingly. They likely will not take me alive. I told her that. And I don't know if that sounds, this whole thing sounds crazy, but I just couldn't chance bad people getting a hold of me in a place that I couldn't escape and tormenting me. And through that torment, they would probably just keep me there indefinitely, because they would force me to exhibit what would look like symptoms of a condition that I needed to be held there permanently. I was really concerned that I would live the rest of my life in a mental health facility, because there would be people who wished to do me harm, and that time there would be absolute torture. I'm going to stop this video here, and then I'm going to move on to that incident. I just wanted to preface all that with more context. Okay. Thank you. I'll hopefully see you in the next video.